Hello, this is Dave and Kathy. As most of you know, we just completed a train trip on Amtrak from Jacksonville, Florida to Seattle and back. What we wanted to do here is reflect on some of the pros and cons of that trip. As you might expect, a trip that long is does have some pros and a few cons along the way. When we were in Seattle, we actually made a video that reviewed kind of the pros and cons that we didn't display because we had talked to Amtrak about one of the problems. And Amtrak asked us when we actually returned to Jacksonville and the entire trip was over to give them a call. We have since done that. So we want to show you that segment of our reflections halfway through the trip. And then we're going to add a section that talks about our reflections for the second half of the trip and what Amtrak did for us.
Right.
So watch this section. Stay tuned for the follow-up. Well, we just completed our Amtrak trip from Jacksonville to Seattle, Washington. We wanted to share with you some of the positive experiences and some of the opportunities Amtrak has to improve.
One of the positives was our room attendant, Cody. He did a great job and very accommodating.
Yeah, I think it was especially hard for him because there was a problem with the train from Chicago to Seattle with a bad smell every time someone flushed the toilet in the car in front of us. Now, Cody said it had been worse on the way to Chicago. The entire train car permeated with the smell. In our case, it was mostly the rooms where we were, and the smell only lasted about a minute. But when folks got up in the morning, they flushed that toilet pretty routinely, and the smell was kind of overpowering.
So hopefully they fix that for the next run. We really enjoyed the scenery as advertised. It was spectacular, from the plains to the mountains. Very, very nice.
Yeah. We also were able along the way to get our exercise between walking in the train and walking outside at the various stops. It was very, very pleasant. Cold sometimes, but pleasant.
Yeah, and we had, and I think you saw our video showed the accommodations were tight, but they were comfortable. We were both able to sleep well each night, and we figured out a way to make everything work.
Another opportunity for Amtrak has to do with meal service. You know, they've opened up the dining cars. They're actually letting some coach passengers buy meals. But those of us that tend to be COVID adverse, still wearing masks, still trying to sit separate, Amtrak needs an accommodation for that. We went up early for breakfast one day. The entire dining car was empty except for two people. We're sitting at one table, and they would not sit us anywhere other than with those two people. Again, I think with still the lingering effects of COVID, and you got an empty car, nobody waiting, the Amtrak ought to rethink that policy.
And we enjoyed the biggest surprise, to be quite honest, was that the trains were not late. Maybe 20, 30 minutes at the most, but we made all our connections straight through. And when we were in a station, the Metro lounges were very, very nice. Very nice place to retreat to. So,
for those that are in the Metro lounges, our preference is Philadelphia.
Oh,
not
absolutely.
on this trip, but it was a great place we did in the spring. DC was nice to hang out with. Chicago was all right, but
Yeah.
Our preference is Philly, DC, and Chicago.
And with our T-Mobile, we had reasonable service that we could bring these videos each day. So that was a pleasant surprise, or at least we weren't sure ahead of time.
On the whole, we're glad we made the trip, and we're looking forward to visiting Seattle, visiting some friends, and our return trip. Mm-hmm. More videos to follow.
Yep. See you on the flip side. So, now that we've completed the whole trip, we have some highlights of the way back from Seattle. Actually, the whole thing. We had some lovely scenery. It was, even whether it be the plains, all the snow-covered plains on the way out, and the Rockies and the Cascades. We even had fresh falling snow.
I made my first snowball in years.
Yeah, right. So it was idyllic. It was very pretty, and we had great service. I mean, different room attendants on each train, but they all treated us very well. And the one, especially on the California Zephyr, was just amazing. Bathrooms were kept clean. We were, she was always, checking in with us and making sure that we had what we needed. Brought us our meals.
Yeah, she had little signs on our doors when we came.
Right, yeah.
It's what, little Easter bunnies.
Yeah, so it was yeah, so she was great, but we had many good attendants, and we even a lot of people said, well, how do you sit on a train for all that time? Well, we managed to get 10,000 steps in almost every day, and because they have stops and you can get off and walk, and we can walk some on the train, but we did get up and move around, so it wasn't as static as you think. So it was a very good experience. The meals, we had probably more food than we needed to eat, but they were all very good, and certain desserts that we couldn't resist eating multiple times. So
yeah, now we got to get back in shape for our upcoming annual physicals.
So much for indulging ourselves.
Yeah, although we did miss one lunch.
Yeah, so we.
Leaving Seattle, the train was about 4 hours late. We got there at the original time, right? It was a little bit before 9.
It was supposed to leave at 9:30, something like that, but we knew before we got there that it was already an hour late. We learned over time what the reason for that was. There was a weather on the way in. The incoming train was very late, 10 hours late.
Yeah, at the station they pulled out snacks, which was really nice, but it's not a meal. We got on the train, and it's the same time many other trains serve lunch. So we're kind of thinking, oh, we're going to get lunch.
Yeah.
No, not the case. We had to wait for dinner. That one we actually ended up going to the cafe car and buying a sandwich.
Bought something. It had been a long time since breakfast, and they were going to serve dinner early, but that was still like 4:30. So we had some hiccups along the way, but for the most part, Amtrak did something to accommodate us. On that same train. We sat down, we were, finally on board, we're relaxing. It's like, oh, shoot, we made it. And we look up and realize that there's no curtain. And the curtains are in the inside of a door which closes and latches. But the door has glass windows in it. So you need the curtain for privacy. And what had happened in the haste of turning the thing over, they forgot the curtain, but they upgraded us to a sleeper, which was great. Yeah,
I remember we were out in the observation car, and also we're hearing our names called. It's like, who knows us on this train?
Yes.
And it was the conductor
looking for us.
Who'd heard about the curtain and offered us a bedroom instead.
Right,
it's like,
so it's
wow.
pretty
What a win.
Easy fix for us, and it was a win. So I think the other time we had, we obviously, as if you watch the videos, you know that we had a misconnection in Chicago. The train was over 4 hours late, and we had a gap. We could have made it almost. We were 20 minutes too late to make our connection on the Capital Limited, and so that was disappointing. But we couldn't have been treated better. We got a meal for that evening. We had a bus to a hotel. The hotel was gorgeous. We had, and very, very comfortable. We had a bus back in the morning. We had food vouchers to eat throughout the day because our train didn't leave till late in the evening, or not late in the evening, but like 7:30.
And our biggest concern was when we got rebooked, we'd be in coach.
Yes, and then
and we weren't. We had the same accommodations that we had signed up for.
And we could enjoy all of that other stuff because we were rebooked, and we got a notification on the app. I mean, I happened to wake up in the middle of the night and looked at the app, and there it was. Our new ticket was there, and it was in a room mat, just like we originally booked.
Yeah, I've got to give the Zephyr train personnel a lot of credit. They were doing everything they could to make up the time.
Right. Yeah.
And Amtrak noticed several groups of passengers were going to miss their train in Chicago and found a way that they could get off at a station, hop on buses, and get bused to the train, so they really didn't miss the connection. They just missed going to Chicago and back out of Chicago, but it saved them. So by the time we got to Chicago, there really weren't too many of us that were delayed.
Right,
and we
right.
got
There weren't that many. I was thinking the room would be full, but it wasn't that bad in terms of the number of people who missed their connections.
yeah, and I enjoyed the extra time in Chicago.
It was a beautiful Sunday, and it was a lovely day to walk around Chicago. So we didn't regret that at all. The other thing is, so we had a couple of late trains, but we've had a number that came in early. Our last two, the Capital Limited and Silver Meteor, arrived just a little bit early, and so we made our connections. I was even surprised because those two trains also left later, 7:30, 7:30, and as soon as we got on board, they said, "Well, what do you want for dinner?" And we were a little surprised, at least the first time. We thought, "Well, it's late enough. We didn't think we were getting dinner."
Right. So we missed lunch we thought we'd get, and we got a dinner we didn't expect.
Yes.
So all's good.
Right. So
What we do want to share with you is the Empire Builder. You saw the video we did before, where there was a smell in the room, and we were really hoping that Amtrak could have moved us to another room to avoid that
Yes.
smell. Problem was the train's 100% full, that they didn't have any other options. However, in talking to Amtrak, I guess it was just yesterday, they've given us some credit that's going to allow us to make another train trip.
right.
So you have to stay tuned and see where we go.
Right, and we have a voucher for another trip, and this certainly hasn't dissuaded us from getting on Amtrak and riding more trips. We are fans. So.
Yeah, we love that. We love that trip we just made.
Mm-hmm.
Looking forward to more trips, and you really couldn't ask Amtrak in almost all cases really to do anything more than what they did.
Right.
Customer service is certainly in their blood.
Yes, it is. So, and hopefully it will continue to improve. I think that a negative that it wasn't terrible, but it's something that I kept noticing is the cars are aging. They are talking, about newer cars coming, and the attendants and the Amtrak employees are really looking forward to those, but they haven't at least been deployed on most of the routes we were on. So.
Right. You see a lot of activity regarding new engines, new cars, new routes.
We'll see what develops.
A lot of upcoming changes, perhaps with Amtrak, all for the better.
Yes.
So, thanks for joining us on this journey, and we'll see you down the road.
Yes.